Hi, everyone. It's Hazel from Empowering Your Circle podcast. And I'm very excited because I did a welcome episode, but now I am live with my first interview. And I'm very excited because my first interview is with somebody that I used to work with at least 14 years ago, probably, in Sydney, Australia. She was also on my radio show, the Small Business Show in Sydney, but we had lost touch. And then recently we have reconnected. And one of the things I was going to say is it's so important that when you connect with people, wherever they are and wherever they are in their careers right now or anything else, you have to be credible. You have to have an integrity. You have to be able to feel like what you are doing with that person has an honesty to it. Because I don't think Yvonne and I would have reconnected if we didn't have that between us. And I think that's really important. It's all very well 101 connections all over the place. But if you don't have that between you and someone else, then it's never going to come back round to help you, support you, be with you, and it was so exciting when we actually reconnected a couple of weeks ago after like 14 years. So, and we caught up on all of our travels. So I'm really excited that Yvonne is my first guest. And I'm chatting with her. This is very global because she is in Kuala Lumpur, which is very exciting. So,
So
just a little bit about Yvonne from my perspective, and then I'm going to hand over and she'll give us a little bit more, maybe a little bit more in depth about it. But Yvonne is the co founder and a certified speaking professional of 5Echo. So, she's going to be chatting to us with today about intentional leadership, life transitions, lessons learnt, because we could all learn from lessons. And also, what I really love is where she said the magic of being alive. And I think that's really important. And with everybody who's knows me and been through what I've been through in the last 18 months, to be sitting here and to bring back to life something I absolutely love is making me feel happy. So that's really important. Um, she's got a fabulous and varied story to tell, working and being across different countries with her children and working there and learning all new things. But what she really wants to do is help individuals make changes from the inside out in leadership. So it's my privilege to welcome Dr. Yvonne Sun to my Empowering Your Circle podcast. So welcome, Yvonne.
thank you, Hazel. It just touched me and moved me so much when you said what you wanted to say, because that's what the magic of being alive, right? While we're alive, we can actually reach out to anybody in the world if we choose to. And nowadays we can even Google one another and actually find one another if we wanted to. But I can't remember how we bumped into each other again, and it's just magical. So I wanted to say that um, if if you were to remember those many years ago when I first started, I was transitioning from being a full-time career woman in dentistry to becoming a more full-time stay-at-home mom with two babies of both under two, and then to be a part-time investigation of what it was like to take my love of people, my passion for people, to be able to help them be their best selves. And that is through the lens of coaching and facilitation. So it was in its infancy. I was blogging about it. I was starting to write a book on intentional parenting because my kids were the best examples of how to hold a mirror to your parent. And it's not about what I know, but what is it that I trigger in them that they can feel me, and then I can attune to it to see what is it that I need to learn, because they're giving me back the face or the tone of anger that I need to actually learn about myself. So this magic of being alive kind of ties all that. Life transitions, being able to be intentional in your self-leadership first before you can lead others, be it a family or a career or your organization. And so the magic of being alive is we're constantly learning. And I think one of the key things about my gratitude for life is that every situation, every person, every entity that I encounter has made me better by having learned something about each of those. So that's what I want to say. That's the magic of living. If you're willing to be open-minded, open-hearted, and having an open will to keep growing, it cannot not be magical.
Yeah, look, I mean, that's amazing. And also, that book was really incredible because I remember having it when my children were little. So
Thank you.
yeah, it's a very important book. I assume people can still get that. Is that right? People can
Yes,
still.
I mean, it was funnily enough, when it was first published, Intentional Parenting was only released through Random House Australia, which has since become Penguin Random House. I think you can get a large print edition if you want it print, because we wanted to be inclusive, that people who are like parents might want to have a big print one to see it reading while they are nursing their children. But also on Kindle or any of those e-books. So it's published through that, but you can also get it on Amazon. So Amazon would be happy for you to reach out to them. And if anything, I would request that once you've read it, do drop me a little review just to see what is it that helped you, because it's less about being a parent, but about parenting yourself better as a leader in the world. So lovely. Thank you
See?
for putting that plug in.
So I mentioned in my intro that you have kind of worked across countries, different careers. But is there like, do you think a pivotal moment that sparked your transformation that kind of has led you to this intentional leadership that I know you're passionate about?
Well, if I can see it as not a exponential transformation, but more an incremental. So a lot of things people say evolution kind of happens as a revolution, right? So to me, I think it was incremental. So firstly, intentional leadership probably really, if I had to look at a catalyst, was exactly that point where when I stayed home as a full-time parent, and I love my team, my kids. How can I still be the best leader, but still tune into their feelings so that they can then tune into how I'm feeling about them and I can learn about myself. So intentional leadership really probably started that juncture where I felt leading in the workplace. At that time, like I said, I owned a business as a dentist, so I had team, I had patients. But when you actually love your team more than you love yourself, which is being a parent, how do you take those leadership skills and make it with feeling? And actually, if you transpose that back to I put love in the workplace, it actually also works. If you love your team enough to give them enough training and opportunities so that they should leave you, like give you the best so you can go out there and make a life for yourself, they often come back with greater rewards. Like I know I've certainly through some people in dentistry where they've gone out in the world because they sought greener pastures elsewhere. Like, for example, a dental assistant that was working with us then went on to be not only a hygienist, but later on studied dentistry and came back to at first served us as a hygienist. And then later on, she herself became a dental practitioner. So you know what I mean? So these are the things that you never really see. So intentional leadership, that was the juncture. But the incremental stages was in life, I grew up with a father who said, make sure you do what you love. And when you do what you love, you never work a day in your life because your
Mm,
vocation is really like a
I love
vacation.
that. I love that
Often,
quote. I do.
right. So the incremental thing was always seek for something that you love doing so you can be your best. So when I found that in dentistry, I was good, but I don't think I was at my best often because I cannot do a lot more things besides fixing mechanically some of people's problems. Of course, they can be less apprehensive because I'm really friendly and helpful. But I had to mechanically fix their problem usually. And preventive dentistry is alive and well with education. But to be able to actually help someone to help themselves, I had to become a coach, because with a coach, I should come in with questions and you fix your own life. And that really was what I felt was I'm at my best. So the incremental discoveries was, I guess, what people talk about standing on the shoulders of giants. You can be your own giant because you start off with starting to know yourself, the upbringing of saying you got to do your best and find something you love doing. I found that I liked doing dentistry. I didn't love it. I was still good at it, but I didn't become better until I could really express myself as a coach and also as a parent using coaching posture, which you'll find in the intentional parenting book. And then now actually not only working in corporate as a manager, helping others in the organization grow, but now still stepping back out as a consultant again in my semi-retirement, not only being paid to work with C-suite that impacts a lot of people, but I can do it pro bono because I can afford to. I can still work with young people, mentoring them using the same skills. And there I have it. I am doing my best, doing what I love, using the skills I picked up where people can help themselves. I don't have to live their lives for them.
Yeah. And I think one of the things I think really is important. And in my last role, for example, I used to say to people, you have to like your job, you have to, but you have to love what you do. So, and I just think and that's why I've done what I'm doing now in my career and setting up my business because all the elements of it are what I love to do. Like this, I'm so excited that I'm actually doing interviews again. It's been like years and years, but now I'm back to do the things I love to do. And it's really important to me. And I think that's really important as you move through. And you mentioned about transitioning and kind of not necessarily doing it as one fell thing, but like incrementally. But it can be quite daunting for people to transition from one thing to another, whether it's personal or it's professional. So if you had kind of a way of talking about your biggest lessons in life transitions and how they've shaped your way, but how it could also help other people, that would be really something which would be good.
Well, firstly, I think, again, the juncture of when I first actually decided to do dentistry and or swap to become a full-time mom who wrote a book and then swap to become a coach. And then when did I kind of made a transition from work, kind of career, being being a wife and mother, to actually courageously step out of my marriage. Also change countries, change careers, change marital status all in one day. It all led to me kind of reflecting on what, and when I chose to retire from full-time corporate, because we can be addicted to our salary. So it's also, those were 5 transitional times in my. So I went all the way back to dentistry. I think in my young days, my teacher said, don't waste your mark. You did so well. So in Australia, we have the HSE, where if you got to a certain percentile, you could pick whatever courses you wanted, right? So I had my pick. I could do medicine, I could do law, I could do dentistry, and I remember someone says, "Oh, don't waste it. Be a doctor, right? Go and get out there." So at some level, as a young person, a little unevolved, I would say I don't want to displace people. So I would go into dentistry as a profession because it went into medical, but it was the kind of the less noble cousin to medicine, because it was not seen like the echelon of where you should be. So I was a little bit rebellious. I said, yeah, I should do something just a little bit to prove that I can. I don't have to do medicine because everybody's expecting me to. So I think that was the key. But I also deep down knew that I don't think I get attached to people. So I always knew I was passionate about people. And if I chose medicine, I guess I'll see deaths in my daily work a little bit more than I would. The death of a root canal pulp is kind of easier to deal with this in dentistry. So I think I understood myself a little bit to make that transition. But like I said, when did I find out I didn't love it and I only liked it? Is when I realized it was still dealing with people. But at that time, I had also by accident chosen to be a full-time mom, because I had these beautiful dreams about, I had my own practice. I said to my patients, do not worry. I shall be back in 3 months. Once I've had this baby, I've got a creche ready. I've got people ready. I'll be breastfeeding in between, but I'll be, because I
Didn't happen.
did all that stuff, right? So don't worry, I'll be back. Oh, famous last words. Because the moment you cast eyes on that beautiful baby and you say, like, nobody is going to look after this beautiful young soul. I am going to be with him full time. I went, well, that goes out the window. So I kind of apologized to my patients, said, we're getting a locum in. And I will, basically stay away, until the kids are a little bit older. So that could be a year. That's what I thought. But the interesting thing by accident of my children being born, I shouldn't say it's an accident. We all know how it happens, but
Yeah,
their
I hope they
entry
don't
in my
listen to
life.
this, Yvonne.
I won't do the birds and the bees. Anyhow, so with my son being born, I realized that he was going to be my best teacher because in spending full time with him, and then later on, I thought, well, it's so wonderful. Why don't we give him a sister? So I had two kids under two, and I thought, well, with me being full time, and I adored it. But one of the key things that sparked in my mind was because I was also doing a lot of journaling because I was feeling very untrained as a mother. In other words, there's no one
Yes.
book. I was reading, seeking out the book, to be the best parent. I realized that I was falling short. Well, being high achievers, you and I, right? So it's, so there was no one book. And so one of the realization as in my, as I was again feeding my children as you do, you have sleepless nights, and you were just there, you can't do anything because you can't multitask because you can't have a baby hanging off your boob and start vacuuming or doing whatever it is. So there I was sitting there in the dark of night, and I said, my dreams for my children are that they be their best self, and they would want to look to me as a role model, as the best self. Am I living my best life? And I thought, well, as noble as it is being a mother, I do believe that I've had so much experience in training. I was also a later mother. So I think I had my first child at 34. So I wasn't like having my kids that early. So I felt like I got a lot of experience I could share beyond being a mother. What else can I do? So it started making me think, like, if I really wanted to be the best role model of my children, am I being my best self? So that's when I started also journaling and thinking, I'm not being the best mother and I'm not having a career. I'm losing out on both, But I thought, since I'm committed to full time here and allowing my practice to be run through, at that time, my partner and business partner and husband and locum, what can I do with my children? And I think I thought, well, I'm going to commit to be totally present to them and see what they can teach me. So it became a research lab of what they can teach me, because I certainly wasn't being a great parent. So it really tuned up my senses. So if you wanted a self-help leadership journey, be a mother or father, best one. And I'm sure
Yeah,
you
and
get a lot
I
of
do
them.
agree. There's a lot, and as they grow older, you are still learning from them. I mean, I learn different things every day. I mean, some of it is kind of like, technology and what they're doing on PlayStation or something sometimes, but I'm still learning. And I just think we can often learn, and we don't take enough time with our children, I don't think, to fully comprehend what they're feeling either, because transitions that we may go through, we forget how much they affect them. And
Right,
those are the sorts of things we need to also think about as parents.
right, right.
But we
So
do it, if we do it intentionally, like your word, then we're
yes,
actually, we are committed to learning from them. But in turn, like for me, it was always important to me, with everything that I've been through in the last 18 months, was to show my kids resilience, like show them that you can come back up, you can get back up from whatever upsets and redundancy and all sorts of things, to actually step back up and do it. And like you have in several times, like, new countries, a change in kind of marital status and different things. You've achieved so many things. And that means that there's a mindset shift that you also have to do, to make a difference. And if you look at yourself as a leader, what would you suggest are like one or two kind of mindset shift tips that you could give people? Because I know I mentioned at the beginning about leaders looking from the in, like getting them to think from the inside out. How can you help somebody who's kind of in that position right now, where they're thinking, I want to be this best leader, I really don't know why I'm stuck and I can't do it, and they need to shift that mindset? What kind of things could you suggest or help them with?
The first thing that comes to mind is firstly being able to celebrate uncertainty. In other words, that's tip number one. And secondly, being able to be vulnerable to ask for help as necessary. So those are the two tips. And let me explain a little bit what I mean. So in the first score, uncertain, in our world, we always get fearful when there's uncertainty. So we want to get the answers. And every leader is often being looked to give the answer, or at least now in the more innovative world, to help your teams find the answer, right? Because we don't like uncertainty. But we know we cannot change the outside world. Like I said, the journey to inner space really is the last frontier. The outer space, you can explore, but you'll never find the answers. So this uncertainty was really interesting when I actually, and I'll talk about this through the work of a guy called Shai Tubali. I follow his postings quite a bit, and he was talking about him having this conversation about Krishnamurti, who was a philosopher in our times, who often answered a question with a question. And of course his followers and his students always wanted to, but teacher, you're so wise, why can't you just give us the answer? And he says, when you stop having a flexible mind to think that it's possible beyond the answer then you're now mechanical. You might as well be replaced by a robot. Which brings us to the stage of AI, right?
Yes.
So if we want certainty, you can prompt an AI, and it can be predictable in giving you the answers of whatever it can search that is certain. So if you are wanting certainty, you're behaving like a robot. So the idea is, as a leader, so Krishnamurti and Shai Tubali invites us to have this mind of never knowing the answer. Because when you're always curious, you're always asking for more, that we don't see this as the finite end. Therefore, uncertainty breeds creativity, and therefore breeds us the new frontiers that don't keep looking back, learn from it, but keep moving forward. So celebrate uncertainty and welcome it with the few humanity that all of us are born with to not. So he said, the moment you are actually being impressed by AI predicting your food order or the way you dress, he said, that's when you've become too mechanical. How do I become counterintuitive so an AI cannot predict what I am going? So as a leader, how can I be suitably, unpredictable so that creativity can continue? So that's number one in our world. It's really important to be intentional in being uncertain. And the second part about vulnerability, and I'm going to share another story. So as we said, with all my learnings along the life, and the magical part about being alive is that you're human, and therefore you err. To err is to be human, right? Or to be human is to err, whichever how the saying goes. And I was talking to my son, and he was saying, Mom, I've just started a job as a young intern in a hospital, and I went to see a therapist there because it was one of the things on offer, because it's part of the EAP, and he just said, I went out of curiosity because Dad and you always ask us questions. So we've always had a coaching posture with them. So we never told our kids what to do, and they always kind of help themselves become self-sufficient, at least to find answers themselves, or being able to ask for help with questions. And so he asked for help with this lady. And then he said to me, Mom, it's been 3 sessions. And I really love that when you talk to someone, even who is going to use coaching questions like you, but when they don't know you, you don't give them the expected answer. You dig deeper and you start finding the greater depths of yourself. So I've actually found out a little bit more about you. And not to say that what you did was not enough, but I needed more. And then I said, son, I am so glad you said that, because we are young when we are parents. We do it with the greatest loving intentions, intentional parenting, but we're still growing. We're gonna make errors. So when I divorced your father, or rather the two of us, ended up in separation and divorce for the greater good, actually, because we found that we were not actually pulling each other down and no longer helping each other be the wind beneath our wings. We're friends still, which is great. But I said, we both not a laughing matter at that time, but we can kind of smile about it now. We said, goodness knows our children will have to have a lot of time and money with therapists of what we're putting them through, right? So this is kind of what we were saying. And now I said, I'm so glad you found a therapist and found that at your young life starting out, that you'll be okay. You were vulnerable enough to ask for help even before you felt you needed it, and you asked for help. So this is the point in intentional leadership, that if you can step out and be willing to ask for help because you don't know all the answers, you'll discover magic.
I agree. I think it's very important. Vulnerability is part and parcel of us. We're people. Like you mentioned before, we're not robots, we're people. So we have to be in a situation sometimes where we have to ask for help. We can't always sit back and kind of, expect that we can do everything. When you work in corporate, you've got so many departments that handle so many different things. When you own your own business, like me, it's like, oh, I don't know how to do that. I have to ask somebody because I don't know. It's everything's changed. And therapy is people look down on it, I think, sometimes, but therapy is therapeutic. It's very important. I mean, I'd lost my dad and then I lost my job and I went to see somebody and the first whole session of the first one, all I did was cry. And I said, "Oh, I didn't mean to do that." And she said, "Oh my gosh, no, don't think like that." Because while you were crying, I was writing all these things down. Now I know where my starting point is next session. And I went, "Oh, well, good thing," because I didn't think I was giving you anything. But she said, "No, but the thing is that you were getting something out of your system to somebody who is going to make you dig deeper and is going to ask questions that someone else isn't going to ask you." And I suppose that's what you do as a coach as well. You are constantly trying to get someone to think differently about themselves, and that leads into your leadership again, because I do think that that's what leaders forget to do. Like, you're working with people, so you have to kind of think, there's a vulnerability in your team member which you can help shift if you do it the right
Yeah.
way.
And
So,
you're right. I think
but
sometimes we forget that if we have this lead, like we all have this persona that people might think we're unreachable. But when you have that vulnerability, it also creates a safe space where people feel like, oh, she's human too, he's human too. And therefore it's easy to bridge the gap. And also when you do ask for help sometimes of your team to say, look, I haven't done, okay, pivot tables are not my strong point, right? I have to do them. I can do them, but don't ask me to do anything fancy. But if I need a pivot table done, or like when I need something with AI and something technology, I ask my son, right? So it's the significance you create for the other person, whether it's your team member or a peer or a colleague, is to say, I don't know how to do this. Can you show me? Because it seems, and I'm turning to you because I see that you have more brilliance in it than me. So either you teach me, and that's fine too, or at least help me get through it first. And that creates a huge significance. What? My mother wanted me to help? Oh, my boss wanted me to help? Oh, my revered colleague, doesn't know something that I can do better. Oh, that's amazing. And I think people forget that this can create safety and building relationships and an emotional bank account. You can build your emotional bank account, and not to do it inauthentically, but absolutely
yes.
to ask when it's real, not to pretend like it's a strategy or a tactic. It's very, very key.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to work to people's strengths. And that's the thing that I think also team leaders don't necessarily do. They think they can do all of it themselves, but you seriously have to think about the strengths in your team and work around them. And I think that's really important. Um, but I would love to keep talking, but we're going to run out of time because I'm on my Zoom thing. And
Yes.
but we're going to run out of time. But Yvonne, it has been so amazing, and I will be putting this up onto there'll be YouTube and it'll be on Spotify and Apple, etc. Um, and yeah, it would be really lovely to have it back on at some point again in the future, talking about a more intentional leadership and how we can make sure that leaders feel comfortable in being who they are and giving to their team. So Yvonne's from 5 Echo, and I don't know what the website is if you want to quickly plug how they can grab hold of you.
of me on actually two websites. The www.5, number 5, ECHO, so echo, as in the echoes of a great song in a cave. So 5echo.com is where my co-founder, Mark Dixon, and I actually basically is a small consultancy that helps fast-moving organizations, whether it's an entrepreneur or multinational, move their leadership and culture to where they want to go in this fast-changing world. So intentional leadership. The second website you can also reach me on, which is more personal, is www.Dr Yvonne, YVONNE, Sum, SUM.com. So that's all one word, DrYvonneSum.com. And that's kind of more where my speaking engagements often come from, because this is where I am the persona, Dr. Yvonne Sum, rather than just being a co-founder of 5echo. And that's where I talk a lot about intentional parenting, leadership lessons from the home that can affect your work, but I also talk a lot about intentional leadership, your leadership inside out. Some resources will be there, but you can reach me on either, and happy to hear from you.
Excellent. Well, I will share those links as well with everybody when I put it through my social media and stuff. But Yvonne, it's been wonderful to have you on my podcast. And I feel like everything has come full circle. And it's been like an amazing experience for me all over again. So thank you very much, Yvonne. And we'll chat soon.
It will be